Hey guys, it is October 30th today. I'm going to discuss why a guy in high school can start exploring second residency options and possibly pursue a second passport by the time they're in their early 20s. Okay, so guys here that are often at least in their 20s and 30s have already done research in this, but I think this is an area that many high school guys don't really put much thought into and think about. But I think especially for guys from Western countries, this is a great time to look at possible second residency, second passport options. If you're kind of in a position where you think you're not going to want to live in your home country long term, I think high school is a great time, honestly, to get started. And it hasn't been that many years since I was in high school. And when I look back, I think if I were to do things differently, I would have studied in a second country. I would have studied in a foreign country earlier on when I was in high school. And you can certainly do this in high school. You don't have to wait till you're in university. Or you could even do it in your last year of high school leading up to university and basically continue from high school into university as a foreign student. It's important here to understand that as a high school student, you're going to have a lot more ability to integrate and to adapt to a particular culture, probably learn the language and kind of grow in the specific country, and you're just going to be able to adapt a lot quicker than someone who's even 10 years older. I've known of people in my personal life who went and studied when they were in high school, and it seemed to generally be quite positive. And it would be very beneficial. Of course, you typically won't be able to work an official job. You may have to live with a family, but I think it can still work in your favor. Some of the youngest guys that follow me are in high school here and may wonder like what they can do if they're really not liking it in their home country. And I really believe that a guy who's in high school is at an old enough age where they can make that call that they're not in the right place. When I was in high school, for example, I knew that I was not in the right country. I could make that call that early on. So I don't think you're too young. There's maybe challenges by the fact that you're often still classified as a minor. So you're going to be more restricted by like movement and being, when you're outside of your home country, there's just generally more stipulations that you will have to follow, and your parents probably also will have to follow if you're choosing to live out of the country at this age. I think it's really optimal, for example, if you're a person that has one parent that's from another country, like especially if it's a less developed country. I've known of guys that had a parent, uncle or grandparent that was from Eastern Europe when I was in high school. That type of situation would be very optimal for the person to go and live in that country and spend a year of high school or two in that country, and they could really see if they liked it or not. Also, too, at this early of an age, you could figure out like if it was something you could see yourself in the future doing, and you would still be young enough that if you don't really like it that much, you could go to another country and live and pursue a different kind of path. That was one thing, even with myself. I was studying abroad as a foreign exchange student when I was 20 years old, and I had a friend and he was 29 years old, and he had told me at that time that he wished he had started earlier because by that age it's harder to pivot if you want to go to a different country. In my case, I realized that South America wasn't the right place for me long term, and I eventually pivoted to Eastern Europe. Unfortunately, I was still young enough. Now, it's really good if you're still in high school because you're so young that you can very easily move around without it really affecting your life too much. You aren't at a point where you're probably in a professional environment, so it's not going to show up on your record that you were, say, absent for a year or a few years out of the country. You're young enough that you're also at an age where you might be able to utilize some of the skill sets learned in that country, even if you don't stay there, and use it for your future career. Or if you say decide to pursue university in your home country, it would look very good on your credentials if it displayed that you were living in a foreign country for a year or 2 years in high school. That another alternative is that you start as a senior, and then you basically, if you really like the country, you could just continue living in that country as a university student, and then at that point you would have more independence to continue living in that country. I think with how the certain Western countries like the US and Canada are going, it's becoming very challenging and harsh for many younger high school men out there, and they really want to get out of the country, and I think it's never too early to leave. I think another thing is, if you do this sooner, essentially you'd be able to learn these skills at an earlier age, really learn how to be industrious and be able to perhaps do stuff remotely by the time you're in your early 20s, and you could already be starting your career. You would already have learned the skills necessary and begin this path. That's I think something, if I were to go back in time, I think if someone can learn this stuff earlier, be much bit more beneficial than guys say who are like, especially older men out there who are like 40, 50s, these guys. It's very hard often if you haven't been doing something remotely or more independent to just try to begin at that age. It's often a lot more challenging. Often your mind is just very shaped at that point in how you pursue day-to-day life affairs, including work. It's very hard to make those kind of adjustments at that point in time. I think also as a high schooler, you'll be able to meet some very good contacts that will stay with you forever. I mean, some of the better people I've met in my life, I met during university when I was around 20 years old. Even for 17, 18-year-old guys out there, you could certainly meet these good contacts that would be very strong contacts for the years to come. And I think it's always easier if you can meet these people sooner than later. I think also it's very good for like maturity purposes by living outside your home country, being outside your comfort zone, and being in a mindset where you really have to be productive and make things happen. Even if you're in high school, I mean, I think of guys that I knew that were foreign exchange students at my high school. I remember one guy in particular from Germany when I was a freshman in high school. I was going into my freshman year. This was like in 2007, and I thought the guy was like a coach for our team. He was part of the soccer team or football team for Europeans. I could not believe the guy was actually considered a high schooler. It was insane. He was like 17 or 18. I thought he was a coach for the team. He was a foreign exchange student from Germany. I had seen this from some other foreign exchange students who were in high school, and I noticed that often they were very mature for their age at the time, especially the guy. They just really held themselves very well. I think they also knew they had to abide by certain standards to remain in the country and to continue their studies. They had to definitely be a bit more mature than what was normal for their age. And I think these guys probably were able to really get moving on their careers earlier because they learned how to conduct themselves in a more professional way, professional etiquette at a younger age. And this was very, very beneficial for these guys to learn at such a young age. And the final reason is just simply to enjoy life, to enjoy yourself. I think at a younger age, often your mind is less cluttered and you can often view things in a more simple way. I often think that the younger you are, you'll just be able to make the most of the situation, and I think maybe not worry about certain things as much as people that are a bit older and really make the most of each day and the time that you have as a foreign person in that country. That's honestly the main thing here. I mean, it will be a positive experience no matter what. I've never met a person who studied abroad as a high schooler or who lived abroad that did not have something positive about that experience being abroad, and there was at least some positive thing that they took with them into their life, and that's the main ideal here. So give me your feedback below, and thank you.